Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have about a minute before we officially start, so we'll give some other attendees a moment to join us, but let's go through a little housekeeping. Today's webinar is scheduled to last 1 hour, including Q&A. All participants will be muted to enable the speaker to present without interruption. Questions can be submitted via the GoToWebinar question screen at any time. This webinar is being recorded and will be sent to all of our attendees via email with the slides within 24 to 48 hours. A copy of the Q&A will be sent along with the recording of the webinar. So again, we'll give a couple of registrants some time to get logged in, and then we'll start in a little bit here. Welcome to our webinar, looking at building a new athletic facility. Here's what you need to know. The goal of today's webinar is to go over the differences in fabric buildings versus metal buildings, sports bubbles, and traditional brick and mortar buildings, highlight the benefits of each, and give you a background on how Legacy's buildings differ from other tension fabric buildings on the market. With that, I would like to introduce Shannon Humbert. He is our Legacy's project design consultant for the sports and recreation industry. He has over a decade of experience working in the athletic and sporting realm and has been dedicated to helping companies, schools, and community groups of all sizes find creative, cost-effective ways to build world-class facilities and train champions. All right, Shannon, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Ashley, and thank you all for joining us today. I know some of you I've talked to in person, some of you I've even met in person. That would be my preferred method. And during crazy times, webinars are even more necessary, and so we're going to give it our best attempt today to bring you what we can about athletic facilities and how we differ from other buildings. Established in 2010, Legacy Building Solutions created a technology that allows tension fabric membranes to be applied to rigid tapered I-beam frames made of solid plate steel. The resulting building combined the flexibility and design options of a solid steel frame, including expansive freespan designs, along with proven benefits of traditional fabric buildings. Normally, I would explain all the features of a tension fabric structure, but today I want to highlight some of the features that make them unique from other sports facilities and how they differ from other options on the market. So let's get going. And before we jump into how we differ from metal buildings, Ashley is going to give you a question.
All right. Well, in an attempt to get to know our audience a little better, I wanted to get an idea of who would be joining us today. If you guys could please take a few moments, answer a couple questions, and then we'll share the results.
All right, as we move into metal buildings, and again, thank you for participating in that question. And you know, as I can see, most of you are in that football, soccer, lacrosse, basketball, volleyball, and then you know a multiple of other sports. Yeah, as you can see the picture of the metal building up on your screen. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the standard metal building in the athletic industry. Metal buildings are durable, quicker to install than standard brick and mortar buildings, and design, construct using proven engineering. Even though the metal buildings are probably the most recognizable types of buildings that athletic facilities tend to gravitate towards, they do have their disadvantages. In a metal building, the thousands of screw holes holding all the metal panels to the frame create many attachment points, which require more maintenance over time, create more areas of vulnerability, and can become less energy efficient and very leaky. Also, sometimes that you may notice that you have a couple of practice in buildings is the acoustics in a building like that. And I know obviously we've all been in buildings that are very large echoes very noisy and hard to really hold a conversation in those buildings. When looking at legacy buildings, which you can see on the screen, you've got an inside pool arena, and you can see the outside of a building that's showing some different colors. The structure and the main difference between a legacy fabric structure and a steel building is how the material interacts with the frame. Steel sheets provide that skeleton for the building. In a fabric building, the fabric provides that cladding, and are tensioned over that building frame, which must be accounted for during engineering. An experienced fabric building design firm will include the fabric tensioning loads from the earliest design phase. The building envelope of the fabric structure is superior to that of a steel structure. There are several advantages of fabric structure over steel buildings. A couple of them including longevity, better energy efficiency, and the amount of time that it takes to erect a fabric building. Fabric also has a non-conductive properties that don't easily transfer the outside temperature into the building like metal does. This leads to greater energy efficiency and more sustainable operation. Another benefit of fabric is that it's significantly more airtight, creating a better envelope, unlike metal cladding, which is attached to the frame with, again, those thousands of screw holes that create leaks over time. The airtight fabric eliminates significant heating and cooling loss. Using Legacy's patented fabric attachment system, fabric clad is often installed in about 1/3 of the time of steel sheeting. Rather than installing thousands of tiny fasteners, consuming hours of time, the Legacy fabric is pulled into a Keter rail and attached by our professional crews, which we'll talk about our installation a little bit later. The shorter construction time means faster return on investment. The building is ready for you in weeks sooner, and the cost of wages and living out expenses and downtime are drastically reduced. Professional installation is another advantage of a legacy fabric building. Our in-house installation crews travel nationwide and worldwide, and they know precisely how our buildings go together. There are also proprietary innovations in our designs that they are trained to implement. While there are many factors that make the fabric building and the steel building different, these advantages of the fabric structure noted above make them the preferred option for a lot of athletic facilities. And as we move into the brick and mortar buildings, again, a lot of your projects have probably started with the brick and mortar option. And as you start looking at budget and trying to determine how you're going to gain the inside usable space that you want, the brick and mortar option sometimes can disappear. And really you start looking at other options that are out there. We will fall into the category where we can accomplish, as you look at the picture of a brick and mortar building, a number of the things that you're able to achieve out of a brick and mortar building. One being the aesthetic look of the outside of the building. We'll talk later in our webinar about how we can use different cladding and give you that outside look. Also the ability to be able to collaterally load and use, again, that indoor space for all of the activities that you'd want to use them for. Mezzanines, being able to hang scoreboards, lighting, netting, all the different things that would go in a brick and mortar building. So as we move into the advantage of a legacy building that many don't realize is how permanent our engineering is. Typically people consider fabric buildings as temporary. These are permanent structures that hold the same strict engineering standards as all other building types. Every aspect of the building design, potential pressure is calculated using engineering guidelines. All buildings are designed using specialized software with manual quality checks. Our engineering and building designs also allow for a wide array of decision options and are easily expandable. What I mean by this is that your building, you can grow based on your needs. In other words, increase square footage by the building being longer, being able to use the inside usable space with mezzanines, observation decks, balconies, 2 or 3, 4 levels, depending upon how high the peak height is in the middle of the building. Fabric buildings are known as a cost-effective method of construction. Rapid installation, being able to customize the buildings, make it a capital investment that, number one, is going to be much less than that brick and mortar option, but again, give you the usable space that you want. The heating and cooling is another significant expense that, because of that airtight envelope, is going to allow you to save cost in that energy area, keeping the building, again, warm or cool. Before we move on here, I want to just point out, you can see the rigid steel frame structure in our bottom picture. And again, that is a huge piece that, again, separates us in the fabric building world and versus the inflatables, which is going to be our next topic. We do have, again, as I've mentioned, a rigid steel frame where the building is constructed before our fabric is tensioned over that frame. Air supported fabric structures. Again, most of you are going to be familiar with air supported structures. We are very different. Air supported fabric structures are known as sports domes and sports bubbles, are temporary solutions for indoor sports arenas. Bubbles are available in large free-span areas with initial low price than traditional sports arenas. They are inexpensive, fast to install, very low labor costs in comparison to traditional buildings. Even though an air supported structure is tempting, the many disadvantages of this type of structure. Air supported may be more cost effective in the beginning, but the cost to operate the ongoing basis can be very high. The cost to keep the building inflated and maintained is going to grow over time. If used all season, a possibility of snow buildup on the building can cause permanent or temporary damage. There potentially even can be a structural collapse during large weather events. Again, in an inflatable building, it is impossible to add additional features to the building or separate areas to use for pro shops, spectator seating, or changing rooms. Door options are limited to maintain air pressure, and the inflation will not support additional loads, mounted scoreboards, netting, or divider curtains. And again, I just want to be very clear. We are apples and oranges to air supported structures. We are going to be a permanent solution, tensioning fabric over a building that is going to be able to be customized in the way that you want to use the space. So again, very different than an air supported structure that you might be familiar with. When looking at the legacy building, again, a couple things to point out. Number one, the profile of the building, and we'll get into that a little bit more. You can see in the upper building, we've got a gable end that's a traditional A-frame building. In the turfed picture, you see a building that has a rounded radius, and then in the final picture, you see a monoslope building that was necessary based on the site restrictions of that area and what they needed to accomplish for their building project. And having those different profiles allowed for a different aesthetic look. It also allowed them to use the building for the inside use that they wanted to. Again, legacy tension fabric buildings use the same proven engineering techniques as the structural steel I-beams in traditional construction. They're designed to last for decades without additional operating or maintenance cost. Damage to the fabric, while rare, is easy to repair by the building owner or our trained crews, meaning that if you think back to the picture we showed pulling our fabric panel on our roof, they're pulled in individual panels, meaning that you can repair on site, you can repair individual roof panels with our buildings, which number one makes that an easier and less cost-effective way to maintain the building. Airlocks are not required, as we talked about, for the structural integrity of frame-supported building. Windows, vents, doors are options to keep the building as comfortable temperature as well as allow for loading, as we talked about with dividers, nets, scoreboards, access and egress by people or equipment. The frame also allows for multiple design options, including additions such as lean-tos, second-story mezzanines, multiple cladding options, including stonework, masonry, plus the traditional shape of the frame allow the building to seamlessly blend into the surrounding architecture. The benefits of a tension fabric structure include design flexibility, energy efficiency, long-term value. Not even, again, not a comparison to inflatable bubble. And we'll touch on a few of these things again later. But before I go on and compare our buildings to the tension fabric structures that we compete against, we're going to show a short video that's going to take you through a quick tour of our crews tensioning our fabric over our buildings, going through our fabric, or going through our metal shop and our fabric shop, and really show you how everything's done on site. And again, just a quick video. There will not be any audio to this, so just sit back and let's take a little look. As we finish up this clip and we get into talking about the difference between a legacy building and our fabric building competitors, again, we do everything on site here in Minnesota at our home office. This is something that just didn't just happen overnight. We were one of the largest fabric building installers throughout the world, especially in North America, and this allowed us over that time to really see how we could tension fabric over a building structure and give us the best end product. And as we've come to the conclusion that this structural rigid steel frame building, allowing us to tension fabric over that using the patented system that we have, gives us that airtight envelope and that outside fabric that we need in order to give you the longevity. So as we compare to our fabric building competitors, looking at an open web truss, again, all of our competitors are going to use this type of technology. There are a few that are attempting to use a rigid steel frame building. As you look at this, you can see that it is going to be a rounded mono cover, which just means it's going to be one piece of fabric going from ground to ground, and it's going to make it more difficult for them to do any of those customizations when it comes to loading, whether again it's scoreboards, dividers, nets, mezzanines. Also, the usable space is dictated by what the building can do, not dictated by what you want for usable space and what you're able or what you need in your building. As we look at the rigid steel frame, we've talked about this earlier about different profiles. You can see that, again, the different profiles allow us, again, to adapt to the usable space that you have from a land standpoint, also what you need inside the building, but then being able to accomplish, the balconies, the mezzanines, the overhangs, soffits, lean-tos, again, architectural things as you see in the building with the rounded radius on it, which again are very different and something that can't be accomplished when our competitors are trying to put up a building. Tension fabric buildings, again, have all these capabilities, and we'll talk a little bit more about the soffit as we move into that part. During a wind event, and when we look at this slide, you can see the building, potentially has the opportunity to billow, where you see the rounded monotype cover versus our structure, and this is going to make it very difficult to increase that longevity of that fabric on a building such as our competitors are going to use. In the legacy building option, we're able to tension the fabric correctly the very first time we're there, which allows us to, number one, not have to come back to check our tensioning process, but also allows us to get to that 25-year warranty. With the legacy system, installation crews do not need to disassemble any part of the structure when assembling the frame and the cladding. With most heater systems, the trusses are erected and the cross bracing is detached while the fabric is installed. Because of the size of the fabric panels used in these buildings, it's common for the bracing to remain detached overnight. In a wind event, if a wind event occurs when the trusses are detached, the frame could twist, bend, and ultimately fail. Using legacy system, the fabric roof installation is also done using lifts at eave height rather than requiring the installers to be on the building roof. Since working on the roof is typically the most dangerous time on the job, eliminating this requirement further increases job safety. We will dive into the legacy patented attachment system here in a little bit, but before we leave this slide, again, showing our tensioning system where our building does not need to flex, does not need to be at all disassembled while you're pulling fabric, helps us to tension the fabric correctly, and as you heard me say, keep the building process safer.
Right, before we move on, Shannon, I would like the opportunity to get to know our audience again by asking them another quick poll question. I'm wondering, what type of campuses does our audience represent? What are you looking to add to? If you guys could take a few minutes, please, to answer the question, let us know where you're coming from, and then we'll share with everyone. Awesome. It looks like a large portion of our audience is other, but we do have an equal number of high school and event activity centers joining us.
Great. Well, we're gonna get into the fabric portion. Legacy uses a PVC fabric. It's one of the best known architectural fabrics. Coated PVC fabric is made of a woven inner layer called scrim. The scrim is the basis of the fabric and provides the strength. Typically, I would spend a bunch of time on it, but I'm going to quickly go over again some of the benefits, and then we're going to show a video that is going to demonstrate that strength. Legacy uses an exclusive Exotech fabric that is a PVC material for a number of reasons. Excellent performance in the UV resistance gave us the ability to extend our warranty to 25 years. It can expand, or it can give our building exterior an extended lifespan. Before we leave here, just a key on some of these fabric highlights. You've seen in some of the slides the natural light that is possible. In an insulated lined building, very unlikely that you're going to have any natural light that is going to be part of your project because of the insulation. There are some situations where we've used skylights in our buildings, and really it's going to come down to where your building's being built and what the building's going to be used for. We've talked about the inside liner and the better acoustics, helping to keep down that echo that's happening inside the building. Again, we've talked about the inside white liner providing great superior light reflection and giving you a better inside look. Also in the summer and in the winter, being able to control temperature by having a building that's not conducting heat but reflecting heat. And then the installation process, being able to get our buildings up quicker, allowing you to get into the building sooner and spend less time during this construction period. Again, I'm not going to go into great detail on the physics of the fabric, but I am going to show a video. And again, during this video, Ashley will stop it occasionally, and there is no video or no audio to this. But I really want to point out that that's a roof panel that is set up in our maintenance shop using the same components as you'd find on our roof. And when our owner decided he wanted to drop a 10,000-pound skid steer on our roof panel, there was a lot of us here that were a little bit nervous about how those components are going to react. Based on what we knew about the fabric, felt like the fabric was going to be able to handle that amount of weight. We're not sure how the fabric was going to heal itself after the skid steer was taken off. So again, let's take a look. Again, if that's hard to read on your screen, it's basically just letting you know that we used a 10,000-pound skid steer on one of our fabric panels. Yeah, I think it's playing. It's just a little bit of a pause here. Patience, very hard. It was very hard for us here. Again, as you see that skid steering driving around, the first thing I again want to just remind everybody, those are the same components used on our roof system. So that aluminum track and those bolts are what is used in a typical roof system. The second thing I would like to call your attention is the fabric panel itself. We weld our fabric panels together in-house using tools that bond our seams together, creating a strength that is equal to the fabric itself. The panel he is driving over is a welded panel. If you look closely, or if you did look closely, you maybe could see a seam on that. And then finally, in that last shot that you saw, you could see that the sag that was in that fabric after we pulled that skid steer off had healed itself back to its permanent state. So again, the Legacy X-Tech fabric is the fabric that we use, and it's something that allowed us to go to a 25-year warranty, and it's been a huge change in what we do and how we build our buildings. When talking about the insulation and the inside liners, again, we've talked about most of you are going to be building buildings that have insulation. This is going to eliminate the natural light, but it's going to give you a very clean look, as you can see inside with, again, LED lighting that's gotten much better, potentially indirect lighting that we do see in that bottom picture in the tennis facility that uses our liner to reflect light. And then again, just the ability to have a very airtight envelope that helps with energy efficiency and helps us to achieve energy code, which is something that, again, has to be achieved in the buildings that you'd be looking to build in different climate zones around the country. That is going to be something that we're going to have to be able to handle is the energy code. So when we take a look at how our insulation is done in this cavity, we have a passive air cavity, and this is looking from the eave. You can see that aluminum track that we talked about that connects our roof panel to our frame, and you can see the air cavity above our insulation. We use a standard R30 insulation that is going to be at the bottom of the flange, and it's going to give us this passive air cavity that allows us to vent out the ridge of the building. This gives us the ability to air out potential condensation, any leakage that were to happen. Again, we've mentioned there's not a lot of opportunities for leakage because there's not a lot of screw holes, there's 0 screw holes. There's some ridge venting that's done. But again, you can see our fabric panels are not terminated. They are with a Keter rope attached to our aluminum track, which is then bolted to our system. You can also see we've got a cap system that goes over each one of those aluminum tracks that eliminates any sort of water getting through that aluminum track. This is, again, what makes us different versus our competitors, versus us against metal buildings. We do not sandwich insulation between metal panels and between fabric panels. We are able to use passive air ventilation to help keep that area dry of moisture, similar to your house, and allow you to meet energy code and really have a great potential for energy efficiency when cooling and heating your building. Building installation, you heard me talk about our professional crews that are going to be trained to install our buildings. Very important to us, and a decision we made when we became our own manufacturer is that we were going to keep the integrity of our buildings by employing our crews. This can be challenging at times, especially during the times we have right now where some states our crews can't get where they need to be. We've had to shuffle guys around, but it's that important in, again, installing our buildings correctly and in tensioning our buildings properly to gain all the advantages that we talked about. You heard me talk about the legacy patented fabric attachment system. Each fabric panel is secured to the frame using a Keter attachment system. The most important advantage of a Keter system is that it evenly distributes the pressure created by the wind, snow, and fabric tension to every frame, not just the end frames. The legacy Keter rail system allows for great pre-tensioning on the width of the panels, which means more horizontal tensioning and longer lifespan for each panel. It also creates a smooth appearance, with the fabric structure stretched evenly on the building without unnecessary puckering and wrinkling. Now, thinking back to when we talked about the wind not causing our fabric to billow or cause friction on the frames, this is what we're talking about. And the longevity of our fabric is in part because we're able to tension it correctly. You also heard me talk about the resistance to UV. So those two items combined allow us a 25-year warranty, which competes with any steel building that you're going to have go up, and really any roofing material. You'll be tough to find anything longer than a 25-year warranty. Another significant advantage of this system is increased safety during construction. Frames are completely braced and all cross cables are installed and tensioned prior to installing the fabric onto the building. Frames do not need to be flexed, as we talked about, in order to pull fabric. Safety always first during construction, a vital consideration on many commercial and industrial sites. And these quality controls, again, have been very important to us as we've been able to move around, not just our country here, but around North and South America in order to meet the standards that we might find in different areas. Architectural features and alternative materials. As you've seen throughout some of the buildings, I've shown you Color can be an important part of athletic centers. Logos, mascots, team colors are all possible with fabric exteriors. Our fabric team works with a handful of standard colors: white, forest green, tan, blue, gray. Although any combination is available, typically our standard colors are used in most of our buildings. Again, if you do have a particular color, it's just a matter of getting that color template done so it can be checked off and really allowing us time to get the custom color. When looking at other cladding options, you can see, we've got some brick exterior that is used in the building in the top corner. The Aquatic Center, you see some two-tone fabric colors along with some royal to create a wave appearance on the building, which gives them their own unique opportunity to make the building different. You also see plenty of windows. There is no limitation on doors and windows. Our building is no different than any other building, again, other than we're cladding it with fabric. And then you even see a building that has steel cladding around the perimeter of the building. Again, this was something they needed to accomplish, but really wanted the benefits of a fabric building. Again, some of you are going to be looking at potentially designing your building to handle spectators, be able to handle high occupancies, maybe mezzanines, ground viewing options, bleacher options. It could be something that you are going to put an overlooking mezzanine from the end of the building. All of those different options are going to be possible in a legacy building. And we've talked about the importance of being able to hang dividers, nets, scoreboards, video platforms. You're not going to be limited to, again, the building that you're buying. You're going to be able to custom your building to what your needs are for your space and for what you need to have happen inside the building. Most of the time, and a lot of you, peak height, wall height, overall inside usable space is going to be very important, especially in the height standpoint, because of the different activities. Again, soccer, baseball, basketball, football, all of those activities that want that peak height, you're not going to see our cost increase like you would in traditional build. We're going to have some slope on our building, means we're going to have a pitch, and there's going to be some potential for gaining on height without the same cost that you'd see in traditional building. I mentioned earlier that most athletic facilities we build are insulated and can be used year-round. The interior liner on the insulated buildings are very clean, very bright, very white. Once the lighting is installed, it reflects off the walls and the ceiling. Even the event attendees often comment on how bright the interior is. Now with LED lighting and some of the indirect lighting you're seeing, it's remarkable how the interior liner can amplify the brightness in the building. You also can see, the building below, there's no lights on at the particular time, and all the natural light they're getting through the windows reflecting off the interior white liner gives them a natural feel, a much softer feel inside that building, being able to use the natural light with the windows. Again, lighting is part of the whole process. Being able to do it in such a way that you can eliminate some of the glare, gain some of the natural light through windows, maybe a potential skylight if your situation allows for that, has really given you an advantage in our building system. We also have talked about the acoustics of the building being much better. You can see a quote on there from one of our customers at our engineer partner at River Creek Casino. Again, when we talk to coaches and we talk to people that have used their building, one of the things that we hear a lot is that, yeah, there's noise inside the building, but the ability to be able to hold individual conversations or hold large events like this without having the tremendous amount of echoing that you get in other buildings that we mentioned today is second to none. And this has really been an awesome additional benefit that I'm not even sure we understood 10 years ago as we started down this road, but it's been a great benefit that our coaches, and again, if you're looking at event centers or other activities inside the building, it's been a great way to capitalize on not having to spend a lot of money in improving those acoustics. Before I get to the examples, Ashley has a final poll question that she would like to ask.
Awesome. Well, one last question. I just want to know, out of the people who are joining us today, what type of land, do you have land secured for your next athletic facility? We'll give it a few more seconds here to get some answers in, and then I'll share the results.
All right, before we, oh, sorry about that.
It looks like we have about over half have land secured for their next athletic facility, Shannon.
All right, great. And before we get to the end today and allow you to ask some questions, I want to go through some of the buildings that we have recently finished. We do have a video of a couple of these. The first building that I'm going to pull up is going to be the Fox Creek multiplex that you've seen different pictures of this throughout the webinar today. It is a 58,000 square feet of finished building with a hockey rink, basketball, gymnasium, swimming pool, administrative area that their community is able to use to attract not only their community but surrounding communities to different events that are being held at this location. They started this process looking at a brick and mortar solution. It was very expensive. It's not obtainable. And as they did some research and really looked into what we could do for them and our ability to be able to give them that outside exterior look. And again, if you look at that top picture, those are fabric colors welded together to give it a different look. You saw some up close ones where you can see some figures on the side of that building that again were heat welded to give it their own special look. And it'd be very difficult to identify this as a fabric building until you walk up and touch it. And I think that was important to them in giving them something that was unique to them, something that was special, and not just an industrial looking building that maybe is accomplishing some of the amenities that they wanted. And then inside the buildings, again, you can see that bright effect that the interior is going to have, and again, natural light by using windows in both the aquatic and the gymnasium center. I know the administrator at this building just can't stop raving about how they become the highlight of this area of the country of Alberta for them. And again, this is in northern Alberta. You've heard me talk about engineering, structural design. Well, meeting the snow loads in Alberta, obviously heavy snow loads, the structure of our building is designed to handle that. You've seen our fabric handle skid steer. Our fabric can handle that snow on that building as well. So being able to accomplish a building of this magnitude in Alberta gives me great no reservation in being able to accomplish this throughout the rest of our country. As we move into the Westwood tennis facility, and before we start this video, this is a 15,000 square foot building that was built over an existing tennis court, or 2 courts. They really were looking for something that could give them an indoor feel, not have to spend as much money as they thought they would have to keep it cooled in the summer. And again, this is in Oklahoma where it's very warm in the summer, and it was one of their major concerns. And I think as I visited this and talked to the folks at Westwood, the tennis pros cannot believe that they can keep the building as cool as they are able to without having to spend terrible amounts of money doing that. So let's take a quick look at this building. Also, one of the considerations, we had to meet the USTA guidelines for tennis. And again, if we'd had to fit a cookie cutter frame into this system, we would not have been able to accomplish what they needed to accomplish inside. So again, customizing sidewall heights, peak heights, slope on the roof, was able to accomplish all of the proper heights that they needed over their courts. The two-tone colors, Again, gave it a look by using our standard colors. Again, one other thing that I didn't mention, you can see the overhang and gutters and downspouts that are connecting right into their water runoff, which again, building in areas where you have to mitigate that water is important. Our customer or our competitors are going to have a very difficult time mitigating that water off of their roof. And being able to do that, again, helps us to meet code, helps us to get through architectural designs by being able to not only have an overhang, but also be able to mitigate the water. As we look at our last video here of the CHADRON Aquatic Center, you've seen the number of pictures of this building. Again, one of our favorites because it uses two-tone colors, uses some different colored fabric to give it a look of its own. It went over an existing pool area. So once again, community trying to figure out how they could create this indoor water space for a year-round usage, combined efforts with the university there and built a lap pool inside the building and really created a one-of-a-kind aquatic center in that part of Nebraska. And they're able to use it year-round. They're able to get what they want out of it from a water park facility and also a lap pool area. So let's take a look at this video. One thing you'll see there is there are some terminations out the roof of our building. We typically would like to see all of our terminations coming out of the side of the building. But again, we can be as custom as we have to be. We're dealing with an existing pool facility, so we had to adapt and find ways to exhaust out the roof of our building. Again, you can see with a water park in there, and one of the comments that one of the administrators there made was, it's loud enough in a water park, which most of you have experienced. Being able to keep some of that echoing down has been an awesome benefit that they didn't realize they were going to get. Well, we're at the end of the webinar, and I'd like to go over some recaps, takeaways. Again, we talked a lot about the other types of building options that are out there and how we compare, what types of materials we use, the ability to use other architectural, gain other architectural features from different profiles and different materials. We also talked about being able to control our longevity with the different fabric that we're using, and really comparing ourselves to what the competitors have out there. So again, thank you. And before we end this, I think Ashley is going to open it up to some questions and take us to the end. Again, stay safe and healthy, and hopefully after we're done here, you can reach out to me with any additional questions that you might have.
That's awesome. Thank you, Shannon. Yes, we do have some questions that came in. One of the questions was, are there increased fire protection needs associated with the fabric building?
Now, there's no increased fire protection needs. Most of our buildings are going to need fire suppression. We've had a few areas that we're able to avoid fire suppression, not very often. So as far as other materials, no. There's a lot of education sometimes that needs to happen so that building officials understand what our building's about, and it is a permanent solution. With typical fire suppression, there is not going to be need to add any additional fire protection.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Another question that came in was, can solar panels be placed on the roof?
Yeah, we're not solar panel experts, but again, because of the use of the rigid steel frame, anything can be mounted on our roof on those frame lines. We do have a building with solar panels on it. So on our website, and again, if you reach out to me after this, I can send you a case profile on that building. But we do have a building that does have solar panels on it, and yes, we would be able to mount those on our roof.
All right, thank you. You mentioned roof penetrations are not allowed, but are wall penetrations available?
Yes, so let me just back up. We would like to avoid venting anything out of our roof panels. Again, like in the aquatic center, it was a must because of the way their aquatic system was already in place. Most of our ventilation and terminations with mechanicals are going to be through our sidewalls and end walls. If we do need to come through the roof, we'll try to keep it as close as we can to the ridge line or to the frame lines. And again, just avoid wear and tear on our fabric through those roof penetrations. So either one is doable. We'd like to try to avoid roof penetrations as much as possible.
All right. Another question is, how does our company work with another company installing artificial turf field, specifically related to foundation?
Yeah, so typically we're going to be a subcontractor to the general contractor. Obviously, in a turf situation, the turf or even asphalt for tennis courts are going to be done after our buildings are erected. So typically they call for an inside grade beam or like a curb to terminate their turf to, which is going to be right on grade. This is usually not an issue with the designing of our foundations for our building, but we're gonna be a sub that's going to collaborate with the different folks needed in the process of erecting our building and installing the turf. Again, if you want to reach out after to me, I can certainly connect you with a couple of different strategic partners we have in the field turf industry. We do not have one particular company that we use over another. It really is going to be up to the owner and up to your preference on what you want to spend and what type of turf you want. But there'd be no issues in working with any turf company and installing field turf.
Awesome. Well, another question that came in is, if going forward with a fabric building, are we able to add additional amenities inside the building, such as locker rooms?
Yeah, so again, back to us being a structurally designed building, no different than a steel building and a rigid steel frame building. Any sort of inside amenity or traditional construction can be done inside the building. One advantage that we have, again, over an inflatable and our tension fabric building competitors, is that we can use our collateral. We can collaterally load things with our frames of our building. In other words, we talked about being able to hang nets and scoreboards and dividers and such. We can also hang walking tracks and mezzanines that can be structurally supported from our frames. This does not have to happen. As you can see in the swimming pool building there's a sheetrocked wall that's got those different colors on it. That is a mezzanine that's built inside that building using traditional building materials. So there will be no limitations to building inside the fabric structure. And typically, as we go through projects and looking at how to value engineer them, building inside our envelope is typically the most inexpensive way to do it.
Someone would like to add additional space to their current building. Can they connect to their existing field house?
Yeah, so connecting our building, the Fox Creek complex, the gymnasium building is connected with a breezeway. So typically when we're going to build next to a building that we want to connect to, it's going to be a tunnel type breezeway that is going to connect again at one level or one story. Being able to build right next to an existing building, when doing it with the end of the building, possible. Difficult when we're building something right next to an existing building where we have to control the watershed, we have to control whatever potentially is coming off the existing building onto our building. So we'd have to be very calculated in, number one, the environment. Is it a snow environment and is it not? Is there going to be the ability to get through building code, again, fire issues in having fire lanes in between the existing facility. Building construction and building a building at the same time is a little easier because you can determine all these factors, making sure you're allowing for snow shed. So one of the complexes we just finished at Stony Brook University, they had an 8,000 square foot brick and mortar building that was built and connected along the sidewall of our building. Again, taking in all those considerations when it comes to code and building it at the same time is much easier than trying to build our building right next to an existing building. Connecting with a breezeway, definitely possible.
What is the largest building that can be built? Do we have the ability to possibly cover 2 soccer fields?
We can span up to 400 feet wide, which again, in the soccer world, potentially, depending upon how wide, what measurement you're using, yeah, you could potentially cover 2 soccer fields. Lengthwise, we can go as long as you want to go. So again, being able to wide span up to 400 feet and length of as long as you would need, you can accomplish a lot inside our building when it comes to free spanned space. When you do get that wide, again, we're always going to have slope on our building. And so you do need to be cognizant of the fact that the peak height is going to be very high, depending upon how high your sidewalls are. And again, depending upon where you are in the country. In snow areas, we're going to have a 5 to a 6/12 slope on our buildings. So again, in most of your cases, being able to cover what it is you're trying to accomplish is not going to be a problem.
All right. Can fabric buildings handle the elements, all elements? I know that Minnesota is completely different than Florida, and Florida is completely different than California. Would our buildings be able to handle elements in each of those locations?
Yeah, so as you've heard us talk and see some of the different buildings out there, we've got buildings in the mountains of Chile, we have buildings in Florida, we have buildings in northern Alberta. And those are snow loads, those are high wind levels, those are hurricane winds, I should say. We're finishing some buildings and have finished buildings in California in high seismic areas. So again, using a structural design of a building that has proven engineering history has allowed us to build in all those areas because the structure has those proven engineered histories. The fabric, again, as you've seen in our video, has passed the hurricane testing in Florida and has been able to meet the standards needed in those high snow levels. So we haven't found a building that we couldn't build because of elements.
It was just like 2 parts to a question coming in here is, what rating of insulation is possible?
Yeah, so our standard is R30 insulation, which in most climate zones accomplishes energy code. We have had to increase our insulation level to meet energy code in northern climates. So I would say whatever is necessary to meet energy code is possible. Again, R30 is our standard, which accomplishes most of what's needed.
What is the average timeline for manufacture and delivery once final design is completed?
All right, that's a great question. My boss and our manufacturers and the people that are involved don't like to hear this a lot of times, but 16 to 20 weeks. And again, there's a lot of factors in there that can change things. The engineering process takes us a couple weeks, but the permitting process can take as long as it takes to get approvals from the permitting officials and the owner or yourselves that need to, again, sign off on those. Once we start manufacturing our building, it's typically a 12-week process to manufacture our building throughout our plant here. And then delivery and erection can be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. I'm comfortable saying in a 16 to 20 week period, if things are happening the way they're supposed to happen and weather cooperates and everybody is taking care of their part of the job, our buildings can be erected. Some of the complexity that comes with an insulated lined sports building can cause some slowdowns if there's going to be lots of amenities and lots of other trades. So again, great question. Definitely faster than typical building, as we've talked about. I think a 16 to 20 week period for most is going to be very doable.
Have you constructed any college or university athletic buildings?
Yeah, Stony Brook, we just finished one, Stony Brook University. Also, Texas A&M has 2 facilities, one with an indoor 200-meter track and one with an indoor football complex. Those were rigid I-frame buildings. So those are buildings that Legacy has installed and maintained, but that was, again, using previous technology to what Legacy uses now. And there's other ones out there in that standpoint. Tennis facilities and other sports buildings, on high school campuses. We do have a couple projects that, obviously the university market is slowed down here this spring a little bit with a couple projects that are kind of on a little bit of a hold until we find out how we're going to get through this. But yes, we have built on university campuses.
A question came in that I find very interesting is with our ability to do natural light and skylights, is it possible to have natural grass in one of our buildings, or maybe a combination of artificial and natural?
Again, I'm not maybe qualified to answer that, but I'd say no, because we're not going to have, you're going to have some of that light penetrating, but not what you need from the sun to grow the grass. So it's not a greenhouse type of an effect. So my answer would be no, but I would say that I would, want to check on what exactly grass would need if that would be the case, but most likely not.
Yeah, I think that is all the questions we have, Shannon. We've recorded all these question and answers, and I also have what everybody submitted, so we will go through and make sure we provide a document of the question and answers along with the recording.
All right, again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and again, crazy times, and hopefully we'll be back to normal. Certainly reach out to me if you have individual questions and want to talk about your projects. And I know some of you have already reached out over the last couple of years, and we've talked about what you're looking to do. We certainly would like to help you with any low-level visual drawings, help you to get through the process that you need to get it to a stage where you can maybe go out to bid or really find out if you've got the money to accomplish this project. So again, thank you, and feel free to reach out.